Welcome. This is an advanced green screen masterclass where I'm going to teach you the Delta keyer. That's the keyer that's inside the Fusion page of DaVinci Resolve Studio 20, where you're going to learn things never taught on YouTube that I've ever seen before, at least. We're going to talk about things about Despill, how to create a custom Despill map so that your background's going to match no matter what, and your edges are not going to look too bright or too dark. You're going to keep that detail. I'm also going to show you how you can combine different mats, like an edge mat and a core mat, advanced techniques, right? We're also going to deal with raw footage. The footage we're working with here, this is my dog on a poorly lit green screen, but it's Sony FX3 Blackmagic raw footage. It's amazing. We're going to use the best quality footage. In fact, if you want to follow along with the same footage, I'm telling you, you can go download it right now. It's at my website, creativevideotips.com. If you join the Cutting Club, it's a way you can help support the channel when I teach these tutorials for free here on YouTube. Let's get started. The way I like to work in Fusion, place your clip directly on the timeline, and the reason I work this way is because I can render from the deliver page and retain source timecode for the main play. So I start this way. The other thing is when you park your playhead over it, click the Fusion button, you're working at native source resolution as well. Now, I also want to point out before we even get in further into it, color management wise, if I open my project settings, it's disabled. It's basically just DaVinci RGB, which means that I'm going to do the linear conversion, which is necessary in advanced compositing so that all the math works out properly. Because we're going to be using channel booleans today. Hang in there, it's not that tough. But I'm going to work top down. So I'm going to change workspace here to layout presets, Fusion presets, mid-flow, vertical. All my nuke friends are going to love this because you can work in a similar fashion. So I'm just, instead of left to right, I'm working top down. The first thing I want to do, I've got log footage to start here. Dog is moving around a little bit. It's on a tripod, so it's going to be easy for the key. But I want to put this in a linear space. The way I'm going to do that, shift space, Cineon Log tool, is really the simplest way to do this. And the reason I'm using this and not like a color space transform is I want to keep the color gamuts, the primaries, in the exact same location, because it's when you change those that you generally start ending up with issues in compositing. So what I'm going to do is use the Cineon Log tool and just remove the transfer curve. That's all this tool does, is basically go from log to linear space. And then you just choose the log type. So this is going to be Sony S-Log, S-Log3, because it's from a Sony FX3. And it's taking care of the rest. Now, the viewer's wrong to start with, so we need to take care of that too. So if you're new to Fusion, the view LUT is this waffle-looking button right up here. Click that. And then if you want to click Edit after the little caret next to it, you can say what your source space is. So my source space is going to be Sony S-Gamma3 Cine, and output is sRGB. That's what my display is. And just make sure you click the Add Gamma button. Now, pro tip. If you want to keep this, if you use the same footage over and over again, just right-click on the word, go to Settings, Save Default, and now you don't have to enter all this every time. That's kind of all over the board in Fusion. For instance, if you use the Cineon Log tool a lot and you want these settings, right-click on the word Cineon Log, Settings, Save Default. So now we're looking at linear, but we're viewing the gamma of sRGB. But to get back to the edit page, color page for grading the original log, all we need to do is reverse this. So we make a copy, Command-C, Command-V, put this down here before your media out. And then on this version of it, just change this little switch here that goes lin to log. And if you look at this, we've just done like a no operation on it. All right, so why did we do all this? Well, the idea is we work in this middle space here where we're working in linear for most compositing operations. There's exceptions. One of those notably is generally noise reduction. We want to perform that in a log space. So working non-color managed allows me to do that. After the media in one, we want to denoise our footage. Anytime you work with green screen, there's generally noise in it, especially raw footage like this has noise. So we're going to add a noise reduction tool after. So shift space. The one I'm actually going to use today, because it's not shown in tutorials much, is Neat Video's Reduce Noise version 6. It's super fast, probably the best noise reduction tool available on the market. So why not use it? It is paid. It's not included in Resolve, but you can use the default Resolve noise reduction. It's actually really good too. So once that's loaded into the flow, you just click Prepare Noise Print. It opens it up. It's like an open effect. And the way this tool works, I can just click Auto Profile. It's going to pick a featureless area for me. Sure, that will work fine. Profile check. And you can kind of see what it's actually going to remove. Now, this is exaggerated, but it's going to be good for our purpose. Not a tutorial on noise reduction. Just know you do need to denoise your green screen if you want to get a good result. So now that that's done, we can actually get to work. Now, I want to bring in my other elements to this plate into the comp before we do anything else. And the reason I bring them in this way is they come in at their native full durations, their native full resolutions. And so I'm just clicking media pool and dragging. Here's my background of the backyard. And then here is actually a clean plate, which what a clean plate is essentially the same as this, but without the subject. And this is useful because it's going to even out irregularities in the background and help retain all that detail to just make the keying a lot easier. When you use the Delta keyer, it wants this clean plate, so shoot it if you can. If you can't, I'll have another tutorial that talks about how you build clean plates, because there's a lot of advanced techniques on how to do that. But for today, I just shot one. It's a single frame. But all of these are log as well, so I do need to apply these same sort of tools to get them into linear. So I'm just lassoing those, Command-C, Command-V, and we're going to do the reduce noise, the exact same one, and the Cineon Log tool on my clean plate. And then for the backyard here, the place where we're going to actually comp the dog over, that one probably doesn't need noise reduction. We'll just skip that for now and just put the Cineon Log tool so we can see this properly with our linear to sRGB view LUT. Now I'm going to put this down to the side for now because we're going to have to focus on two main things today. One is pulling the key, which is going to be done in a couple steps, and then the other one is pulling the Despill. And we'll start with Despill first, because if you tune out, this is the part I think you've probably never seen shared on YouTube. So if you want to get a good Despill, follow these steps. There's lots of ways to do it. I think this is the best because it's going to allow you to selectively color grade to any color picked value for the foreground or the background, and that means those edges are going to match. Here's how that works. So after this Cineon Log tool on here, the tool I'm actually going to use to do the Despill is the Delta keyer. Delta keyer is a great Despill tool in and of itself, even if you're not using it to pull the key. Now, yes, if I take this, you can go to the fringe tab. There's a spill method. If you turn this up, there's a Despill built in on this tab here. This is the same one that's in the matte control, by the way. But it's not the one I want to use today because it doesn't give me control over some extra things like the background color here that I can do channel math on, or the balance here, which actually controls the smoothness of like the difference in the red and blue channels, which is really important if you have really, really strongly lit green screens, things like maybe a monitor background. This is going to come in super handy to have this balance control. But yeah, let's get started. So this is the Despill section. I can load this into the viewer. The way this works and the way you get a Despill off of an image is you just pull a key, believe it or not. So if I just click this eyedropper, I click hold, drag it over to the screen. I'm holding down while I'm dragging. It's not a pick and then release and drop. It's actually you drag it across. This is actually selecting a color value. It's a 1x1 pixel, and like any picker in Fusion, if you hold Command or Control, you can actually get an average of a larger sample box. So maybe I'll do something like that. And this is, let's see, this is maybe a decent color here. I'm going to choose this value right here. This is just a solid green color. You can see red value is 0.12713. And in doing that alone, that has actually applied internal Despill to the keying tool, doing nothing else. You can see there used to be green right here. If I load this on that reflective dog collar right there, now there's not. What's happening is the Delta keyer is doing Despill, but I'm going to actually use the separation of what it's pulled out here so I can manipulate and color grade this Despill separately. It takes just a few notes to do this, and once you've done this once or twice, you'll be able to do it really fast. So the first step I need to do is actually subtract the original image with this despilled version, and we're going to create a luminance map from that. So shift space, channel booleans is our math node. We're going to use a bunch today. So I'm going to rename this one, function F2. We'll call this one subtract, just to keep clear on what's happening. We're going to take the original green footage, stick that into the background of the channel booleans, and the foreground is going to be the result of this initially keyed image. Again, the only thing I did on this is still left at final result. I just sampled the color, load subtract into the viewer, and I haven't set anything on the channel booleans yet. I just need to change operation instead of copy to subtract. And this right here is our spill map. The only thing is it's full of color. I want to take the color out to make it a luminance map. And I'm going to do that with a brightness contrast node, BC, because it has a DSAT built into it. So just take the saturation down. Now I have a luminance map that I could potentially just color grade this luminance map and add it back on, but we're gonna go a step further because that's what we do here on Creative Video Tips, so that you can use a color picker to color grade. So this is our luminance map. The one thing I will point out, saturation here is based off of 601 primaries, not Sony S-Gamma 3 Cine or even 709 primary. So it is going to be a little bit darker, the result, but you're going to always adjust this to taste as you need to go. I'm going to clean up my flow a little bit over here. I'm going to disconnect my output Cineon Log tool. We'll need to get to that later on. The next step after this brightness contrast is I just want to add these values back to the original despilled version. So I could just take this subtract one, copy it, click here, that'll paste it where I click last. Change this one to add. We're gonna do a lot of inverse operations, subtracting, adding, dividing, multiplying. Function F2, and we'll just change this one to add. And then we'll take the luminance map and add the original despill. And now you can see we've got a custom luminance despill here. That looks much better than it did originally. The only thing is, the beauty of this add is we're actually adding the actual luminance back so that this background, this gray, is the same brightness approximately as the original green was. Now here's where the magic happens. In this luminance map section, after this despill, we can color grade this with linear gain. So we can actually change the despill outcome. Why do we even care about despill, by the way, to start? Well, the reason why is these edges that are in here, these fine edges, are gonna have lots of spill from the original green. And we wanna get rid of all the green, but we don't wanna just get rid of it and turn it gray, because we'll see that gray in the composite, things will look dead or they will just look out of place. They won't match the background. So the idea with doing a custom despill is that we can either match the color of the edge of the foreground or we can match the color of the background. One of the two, and it's gonna blend really nicely. And this doesn't involve edge, wraps and glows and all that sort of, there's lots of other techniques. This is just the basis of a good key is getting a good despill, all right? So gray, typically not a great despill because what are you going to always comp on gray? I don't think so. First, I'll show you how you can color grade this, and then we'll go into the color sampling next on our despill. So one of the tools that has gain available is, well, the color gain tool is good, but a lot of people just reach for the color corrector. So I'll show how that one works. We'll stick that right in between the luminance map and the add. And if you just come down here, we can change these color channels with the gain, and we are essentially color grading the despill map only. And it's going to be really nice, high quality throughout. So the idea is if we had a blue-ish sort of sky, what I might do is I might go to the blue channel, adjust the channel gain on the blue, maybe even take the red, and maybe that's the color of sky. Maybe this is a good despill. And you could be done and just adjust this in your comp with an alpha matte, which we'll get into in chapter 2 of this. Or you can actually color pick, which is what I'm going to do instead. So the idea is gain, when you're working in linear, is just doing multiplication. So if you've noticed in channel booleans, we also have mathematical nodes, right? Subtraction, addition. So since gain in linear is multiplication, we can actually replace this color corrector with the channel booleans multiply and start feeding our own stuff into here. It could even be an image, like the background image, for instance. So channel booleans, let's get to the exciting stuff, at least for me. We're going to change multiplication, the channel booleans to multiply here, and we're not going to deal with any alpha stuff, so we'll just say no to that, and we'll change the name, so we're super clear on the flow. Multiply. And what's the inverse of multiply? It's going to be divide. So this is how we're going to actually be able to use the color picker values from the delta key here. So I'm going to take multiply, Command-C, clicking over here so it lands over here, and this one will be our division. So I'm just going to rename this one, divide. And what the heck are we going to divide? We're going to divide some constants. By the way, we'll just go ahead and finish this out. So the divide is going into the multiply. But what are we dividing? What are we multiplying? 2 constant background nodes in this tutorial. So I'm grabbing 2 of those. The first one is going to be our own choice. So for instance, the idea of getting a good despill could be something where the edge of an animal or subject, whatever it is, matches so that the area that was green just continues on. So for instance, I'm going to take a color sample color, this sort of golden color of my dog, and have that be used for the Despill. So the way I'll do that is just take my color picker in the background, solid, get a good sample. In fact, that's probably too large of a sample area. Maybe I want something a little smaller. So click and drag over there. So I've got this sort of, I guess that's a, what do you call that? A brownish, yellowish color. And we see that that's the color it's sampled. So this is actually going to be the color that I'm going to try to use. Now I need to divide it by the green color that was from the delta keyer. And this is one of the powers of using the delta keyers. We actually have a green value we can use to do this mathematically precise down to the 32-bit float math that's in here. So how this is going to work is I need to get these values into this background node. One way we can do that is copy and paste. Another way is with expressions. And I told you this is an advanced class, but it's not a difficult expression. I'm not a big expression dude. So the way this is going to work, delta keyer, I'm going to pin this with the pin button so that I can keep this retained in the inspector. Then I'll click this background node, which is going to be my green. In fact, I'll go ahead and I'll rename this so it's always, this is something we'll always just call green. And I want to get these values up here. The way we can do this with expressions is just right click on the word red down to expression, and that gives us a pick whip. And so I'll take this pick whip of red to red, I'll right click on the word green, expression, pick whip green to green, right click blue, expression. Okay, I don't have to say this every time, do I? But essentially you can see we've gotten that green that we did our original sampling from the delta keyer. This is important for the division step. Now we can't just plug this straight into divide because we're working on the luminance level. So what I need to do is actually take this brightness contrast that was saturated to 0 and apply it to the green. So you could just do a Command C, Command V, and we'll just take this into here and put this into the foreground of the divide. And what this is kind of a crazy looking value because it's floating point and it's gone into really high values. You can see this is super bright. If you did look down at the bottom, these are values over 1. And this is the beauty of floating point. We're not limited to a 0 to 1 range, but this is the amount that we're actually going to color grade with a color multiply. It's a linear gain multiply function that's happening right into here. So now you'll notice this change is getting multiplied into this luminance map, and we're taking on this exact color so that when it's added back on, we have the exact color that we sampled from here. So this one, maybe I'll rename this one. This is user sample. Something like that might be what you might want to call it. So at any point, if you want to change your color grade of your Despill map, all that's necessary with understanding this setup here is you can come in here and sample something else. Maybe you want to Despill to one of these blue colors over here. I'll come over to my inspector. We don't need to pin our delta keyer anymore, so I'll deselect that. Grab our sample of our user sample color, drag it over the blue of the buckle, and now we've done a Despill to that blue color, which would be awesome if it was like a lower lit sky scene behind, because we're going to keep all of that green and it's going to be replaced with this blue on the edges. So much of keying has to do with good edges, and getting good edges has a lot to do with your Despill. And so this is the Despill technique. If you ever wanted to go a little bit further with this, you can even pull your Despill to an edge Despill and a core Despill. This would be considered my core Despill, and your edge Despill could be the image of the background. You literally would just take and multiply your image in instead of these color values. So lots of power here by just using a multiply, which is essentially a linear gain color correct on a desaturated Despill. But for today's tutorial, because I'm putting it on top of, where's my background? Brought in here somewhere. This here, I'm going to do the foreground color, which is that brownish tan color, and we'll see how that looks. So with my user sample, I'm going to choose a part right up here instead. If you're following along at home, maybe somewhere right around there, and that gives me a nice Despill that will keep that color in the semi-transparent regions. Real quick side note on other Despill methods that might be simpler to start using right away in DaVinci Resolve Fusion. And the reason I want to show you my method first is because it's going to work in pretty much any situation, because you have control of the balance of all the different channels with the slider. But just so you're aware, if you want a quicker way, sometimes you can just come over here, use the matte control node to despill an image. I'm going to change the spill method to green, crank the spill suppression slider up, And this is where we run into problems on some images. See this hard line here? Even if I change the algorithm to medium, that doesn't look super nice. I'm able to take care of that over here on the delta keyer. If I look at the results of all this pixel math that we did, by just changing the balance slider right here, so that I can say, oh, I want that to go away. That subtraction of the red and blue channels is able to be controlled with this balance slider. So it's not just controlling the key, it's actually also controlling the despill on the image itself. The final way that I know that I will sometimes go to for despilling an image is the color correct tool. This one, if you go up to the menu section under colors, you have a suppress option, and you can take that and just suck in those green values and put them more towards neutral. But you'll find out you're still running into some weird issues where, you know, the color, you see there's this yellowish fringe here. It's still not completely gone, and I might be affecting too much of removing the yellow from the skin, so it's still not as good of a solution. But if you don't have these, you know, exaggerated background colors from this original plate, these despill options might get you really far, and in compositing, if it looks good, it is good. So we've got a beautiful despill. Now it's time to actually pull the key to apply the cutout for this despill. We're gonna do that separately with extra delta keyers. I'm gonna do a little bit of organization by selecting all this, creating an underlay for it. So shift space UND is the tool that actually puts like a backdrop over it so that we can organize a little bit. And I'll just move this to the side. You can actually, if you wanted to, change the color of it as well. So if I want to make it blue, something a little bit different, you can totally do that. Command or Control F fits the viewer. And to pull the keyer, we're also going to use the delta keyer. We're going to pull it straight off of this original denoise linear version of the footage. And shift space delta keyer. In fact, you know what? We should just be able to take a copy of this one. Let's do that. Command C, Command V. We already sampled the color that we liked initially. Let's see what that's like to continue on. Now on this side of things, we're only concerned about the alpha channel. And a shortcut to view the alpha channel is right up here, the channel viewers. We've got color, red, green, blue. If you hit R on the keyboard, that will look at the red channel, and so on and so on. So we're concerned about A for alpha. So I'm going to use A for alpha a lot. If you tap it again, it goes back to the color image. Just a little trick. But the real power of the delta keyer is the fact that you can use a clean plate to even out irregularities in the background. So you can see this key is not perfect to begin with, but just with using a clean plate, which again is the background without the object in it, is going to fix a lot of problems. The other thing about the delta keyer that's powerful, that's often overlooked, is this balance slider that's right here. So what this does is it basically controls the difference between the blue and the red channels and how they're subtracting from the green. And in this scenario, there's a lot of nice soft edge detail in here, but the core is not great. But if I change the balance slider while looking at the alpha channel, you can see I'm actually able to fill in a lot of section and get a lot more solid areas of this, even on my edge mat, with just changing the balance a little bit towards the left. I don't know if this is tuned for a certain color space like 709 or 601, but just moving this to the left a little bit gives me a much nicer matte without doing anything else to the core quite yet. But the real trick, again, to the delta keyer is the idea of using the clean plate input. That's this purple thing right here. And generally, you're going to have to create a clean plate if you didn't get one from set, because, you know, people don't always provide you what you want, right? But I shot this myself and wanted to make the matte creation part quick, so I've already shot one. It's a single frame without the dog in it. You can see he was just leaving the frame. And so all I need to do is just take the output of this, put this into the purple clean plate input, and you can see if I look at the alpha channel now compared to it not connected, that just did wonders. And this is the power of the delta keyer. It's able to do all this internal math to even out that green screen for us and retain all of that really fine hair detail of the edge of the golden doodle. So that would be our edge mat to start. And the next piece of this is to create a core mat and then combine the two, because you can see the inside of this has holes in it. If I put my cursor here, I'm seeing a value, the alpha right now is 0.87002 down here at the bottom. And we need that to be solid. Otherwise, you're going to see through the background there, which is no bueno. So how do we do that? Well, you could just take a copy of the delta keyer and make it harder. But this is creative video tips where we go a little deeper, and I'll show you how some more nodes are going to give you more control. So the way we're going to do that instead, and probably more performance too, So I'm going to use a bitmap tool, so BMP, and the bitmap tool is just a mask tool. And I'll take the output of the delta keyer, feed that into the bitmap tool, just looking at alpha channel this whole time, and make sure you're using the alpha that's coming into the image. And I'm just going to harden this up by changing the threshold slider. The idea is we're making the black areas more black, the white areas more white, so that there's more solid opaque areas. So you can see if I move my cursor now, it's a solid 1 pretty much everywhere in here. And to the right, it's a solid 0. So that's pretty decent. If you ever want to check this a little further, you can do what's called gamma slamming, which means you hold the view LUT up here, this waffle button. That appears your gain and gamma sliders. If you increase your gamma and decrease it, we're looking for any speckles that appear. And you can see it's actually fairly clean as I gamma slam this. So we'll just say, for instance, this hard matte, this core matte, is nice and crispy. It's filled in pretty good. However, we also want to make sure that we shrink this so that it lives inside of the edges of the edge matte. And so the way we'll do that, how do we erode things? The erode tool. So shift space, erode, and I'll put that down here. And because this is coming out of bitmap, which is a mask tool, it thinks it wants to go in the mask of erode dilate. I don't want that. I actually want it to go into the yellow of erode dilate. And I'm going to change this so that I'm removing the thing to work on the red, green, and blue channels to make it as lightweight as possible. I'm going to use filter mode circle, and we'll just shrink this in. So that's going to erode that. So the idea is this would live inside of the other matte. Something to watch for sometimes is you'll get these sections here that sort of pop open. So if you change filter methods, they may look different. You can see the difference between those. You can do something that's called morphological opening and closing. I've taught before to close these up. But for the essence of getting through this tutorial, we're going to skip that because I think it's going to combine fine with this matte here to get us mostly there. After erode dilate, what we want to do is smooth out those edges. We do that with a blur. So the blur comes after it just a little bit. In fact, we'll turn off red, green, and blue channels to make it as smooth as possible. And then we combine these two. Before we do that, I'll just make this super clear that this right here is our core matte. So shift space, underlay. And you could move this, you could, like we've done before. If I actually option click this, I can rename it. So if I do F2, we'll call this one core. And you can get fancy, change the color if you want, make that one purple. We want to combine this core matte with our edge matte. And we're going to do that with a matte control node using what's basically called an OR operation in other apps, but we can just use the solid matte input of matte control. So shift space, matte control. We're going to take the output of the soft key, the edge key, into the background of matte control. And then the solid input, which is like the core of it, is going to take our core matte. So I'll take this, and I'm right-clicking as I drag and release on matte control. That gives me all the options of all those different inputs, because two look kind of gray to me, so it's hard to know what's the difference between a garbage matte and a solid matte. Well, we want to use the solid matte. And you can see what that did is it nicely filled in the centers of the dog right there. With the exception of right there that has a little problem. We're just going to skip past that part today to continue moving down the road. But basically, we went from our nice edge matte to our core matte. You just want to make sure that your blur and your erode dilate's not bleeding out. So if I disable my blur, is it having any effect on the outside? It actually is. You can see. So I just need to shrink that down a little bit and maybe pull my erode in a little bit further than it currently is, so that it's not having an effect on those edges. We're just wanting to use this to fill in the middle section of the alpha channel of the dog. So that's kind of it for the basics of pulling the key. The main thing is the core matte's going into the solid matte input of matte control, and the edge matte is being aided greatly by the fact that it has a clean plate to smooth out irregularities in the background. So all this together here is our matte. In fact, we could do an underlay for that as well. So this could just be called our overall key. So that is just our alpha. This one over here is just our Despill. We're going to combine those next with a pre-multiply option using a matte control. So let's come down here in the middle and pre-multiply the color, which is the output of the add. I'm hitting C for color with the alpha from the key. Shift space matte control. And we'll put this down here in the middle. I'm taking the color information, so the image color RGB information from the Despill, that goes into the yellow input of matte control. And then I'm going to take the alpha that we created from the core matte and the edge matte technique to the green foreground of matte control. And nothing happens. The reason why is because we need to change some operations over here. The matte control by default is combine and set to none. I want to actually combine the alpha channel from the one to the other. And in Fusion, you get this weird checker underlay. That basically is telling you that you're looking at an unpre-multiplied image. We just need to pre-multiply it. And in the matte control, pre-multiply is actually called post-multiply. I don't know why it's called post-multiply, but it is. You check it, and basically this has cut out the image with our custom Despill that we had set from our user sample over here. Next step is going to be just to place this over the top of our background with a simple merge, because a merge wants a pre-multiplied image. We're going to hit Shift Space, MRG. Actually, no, we're going to do it the fancier way. One thing you can do to automatically create a merge is take the output of what you want on top, which is our dog, and kiss that to the output of what you want behind it, release it. Let's try that one more time, release it, and it creates an auto merge with green is going to the foreground, B is our background, and now it is married up nice. The final sort of steps here would be to do some sort of sizing, repositioning, and then connecting this, of course, to our Cineon Log tool that's going from Lin to Log so we can color grade it over on the color page. However, like I said, we weren't going to worry about the bottom of this, so we probably just want to reposition it. At this point, I might make this go down a little bit lower. So after the matte control, which is the cutout version of the dog, XF is our transform that we want to use in Fusion. While looking at the merge, if I click on transform, I get these controls on screen over here. So I can just start to move them down because I wasn't worrying about the bottom of the key down there. And then I can even move them left and right. I could size them however I wanted to. I can even do that with the background. So if I want to change the background a little bit, I might even do that before going to linear. Sometimes resizing works better when you're doing that sort of stuff in Log. So I might change the size here, make the background a little bit larger. If I want to use the inspector controls, I can do that. If I want to use the controls in the viewer, sometimes that's more intuitive. And then the other thing about backgrounds is we probably want to defocus it. Defocusing works amazing when you're in the linear space. So we might do this after the log to lin space, just space defocus. And we look at the result of that. And it just makes highlights kind of get more highlighty. But it's probably always too intense. So let's take this down to, I don't know. Maybe we bring this. If you hold command, you can do like a finer increment drag. That's another Fusion trick. Command or control, dragging those numbers. So maybe we get down here to just a taste of defocus that we didn't have before to take some of that sharpness off. Look at the merge, and I'd say we got a pretty decent looking comp. Last sort of final thoughts. This would need, maybe it wouldn't need, but it might need some light wrap to deal with it. You're going to want to regrain it. We didn't touch on that. Edge blending, extra color correction to match black and white levels. This was really about what does a Despill sample color look like for different areas, and what does it look like without it? Well, let's investigate right now. So let's take a look. I don't know, this section right up here where it's really bright. If I were to disable this multiply, which is essentially the color grade, the custom color grade that we did with Command P, everything goes gray on the edges, and that's because this Despill is gray, right? But once you look at it over your image, you might find that areas are looking dead. Look at this left side over here. This looks super, super gray in my opinion. But if I add the custom color to our Despill, I didn't change the alpha channel at all. It was all to do with that Despill to getting that to blend correctly. Like I said, you can change this to sample the background. That might work better in certain areas, or you might even use the image itself for an edge Despill, like a custom edge Despill. Lots of ways to deal with it. This is how it's set up by making this initial luminance map. I will show you one of the other big benefits of working in DaVinci Resolve Fusion is if I need to go and make color grades, I just click the edit page and let's see, does this actually fit in a vertical video? Let's find out. If I change this over here, timeline settings to be ready for social media, vertical resolution, maybe he's too far to the right. We've got this new vertical video viewer over here. Let's say I need to reposition the dog. I don't have to go back to another application. I just come in here and say, okay, I'm going to take the transform on all my full resolution pixels, move him a little bit left, and the change is updated immediately. And then you can come in here and color grade on top of it. I personally like to use the DCTL OpenDRT, which is what this is doing, this power grade, to give it a little bit of a look. And there's our final result with a little bit of Film Look Creator grain added as well. Hey, if you stayed this long, I think you deserve to know my name. I'm Chadwick. This channel is called Creative Video Tips, where I help teach all things about DaVinci Resolve. I'm actually a DaVinci Resolve master trainer, but I do commercial finishing for a living here in New York, so I work on high-end commercial TV. But because there's so much more to learn, I'll see you in the next video.